neighbors came over to my house and said, do you know what's going on? Because I did have all the TVs unplugged, getting ready for the movers, you know. And, you know, I did not. So, you know, we just sat in my bedroom and unmade bed and just stared at the television, you know, and looked at what was going on.
So I called my wife that morning because I knew that she was probably not listening to the news because she had televisions and radios unplugged. I'm on the telephone with my wife. That was the third, you know, was when the Pentagon was actually hit. So, you know, she heard the impact, and I tell people being in the Pentagon was like being in a very terrible earthquake. As massive as that building is, I mean, you felt the shock throughout the building.
And then Charlie did call, and all of a sudden, you know, you just hear this bang. And he said, oh, we've been hit. And just hang up. So, you know, you just kind of like, okay, what do I do? And then the movers are knocking on the door, and they said, well, this is the day, you know, we can't change it. And so you just go on, you know, and you know, you're just getting home. Yeah. So they just continued to move everything, and I was just kind of in a fog. It's a good thing I'd moved many times and was used to it, because it was, your head wasn't where it was supposed to be.
When we had everything secure and we were leaving the office, and in the corridors of the Pentagon, you could see the smoke or smell the smoke coming down the corridors. And as we left the building, I tell people that just as we exited the Pentagon, it was absolutely a beautiful September day. The sky was just as blue, a beautiful day. As I'm standing there, and I'm adjacent to the Army helipad, and that's where the impact of the aircraft was. In a previous assignment, I had been assigned, I was an Army aviator at Davidson Army Airfield. So I had flew in and out of that helipad many times. But on that particular day, 9/11, that side of the Pentagon was in flames and just big black billowing smoke. And I tell people in my whole career, my military career, on that particular day standing there, I truly felt helpless, and there was nothing that we could do.
And everybody was calling. I had nothing, you know what I know. And like Charlie said, because they had shut down all the phone lines over the area. So I knew he was going to be okay. I just, you know, I felt it. And so, you know, just trying to, I think, make sure everybody else was believing that too.
I think the majority of the public has simply forgotten. And the other interesting thing is, remember, we have already a whole generation, or maybe two when you think about it, that never really understood or were alive during, you know, when this occurred. So all of the stuff that's happened in these last 20 years, perfectly normal to them. You know, the people flying now, I mean, they expect to be inconvenienced and invasive sorts of things. And before, you just got on a plane. I mean, there was no search, there was nothing. And yeah, it was a major change. There was significant amounts of training. And that was particularly the case for all the emergency services that involved the fire department, the 911 dispatch center, the police. The interesting thing is, though, that it also involved virtually every other aspect of government. And here's why. For example, it involved the finance department, because if there is an emergency, you will get emergency funds for that. This would be a natural disaster or a man-made disaster or a terrorist attack. So the finance department has to record every dollar that the municipality spent handling the overtime, equipment. If you had to rent equipment, you know, to move trees, they had to be trained. The social service department, because they were going to run the shelter. We had to involve the school system, because where were the shelters going to be? They were going to be in the schools. Why? Because they have massive bathrooms, they have cooking facilities, they have large open rooms, and so it was, everybody was involved in this, and everybody ended up having training in this. So it involved the police, the fire department, everybody, not just the agencies that you might think normally would be involved. This has continued. I mean, this is now they always keep saying this, the new norm, but it's the new norm for the last 20 years.
So September 11th, 2001, I remember waking up and to my mom in the living room yelling, making a distressed sound. And I ran in there to her, and that's when she had the news on, and I noticed that, you know, one of the planes had hit the building, the first tower. And so we're sitting there trying to soak all that in, and you know, I can't remember the time that it took for the second plane to hit, but you know, at first we're thinking it was just a big accident, you know, oh my gosh. Just trying to soak it in, the event. And then when the second plane hit, it was like, oh, like this was planned. So sitting there with my mom and watching that, you know, I immediately knew that, hey, this is something that I want to do, you know, to sign up and serve the country and go back and, you know, go pay these guys back, whoever it is. You know, at the time we didn't know for what they had done to so many Americans. So on my second deployment, I was hit with an IED 3 months in, which changed everything for me. That day was a normal day over there. We're going out conducting reconnaissance missions on a main supply route, Tampa, in Balad, Iraq. We started taking heavy fire. Of course, we returned fire and closed the distance, and in doing so, you know, we didn't know that my vehicle had stopped right beside a buried IED beside the highway. And I don't remember what happened because the bomb went off, and then I came to. I just remember, you know, when I came to, all hell had broken loose. There was blood everywhere. I didn't feel good. And I was being medevaced out. That day, to me, humbled America. And I don't think we're humble right now. I think, you know, we're nitpicking about things that, at the end of the day, could be worried about in different avenues, but not on a national level to where it's dividing our country. So looking back to where that event brought us all together as Americans compared to today, it's just kind of disheartening to see the country in the shape that it's in right now. As a veteran, you know, because you go over there and you fight for that pride that you saw, you know, America coming together, and then we got to continue the good fight.
I was working for a U.S. House representative in the Capitol on September 11th, 2001. And so my dad, you know, was on the phone begging me to leave, and I was saying, you know, they're trying to evacuate us, but we have to wait. Like, we have to wait for them to come to our door. And, like, I remember I lived in Northern Virginia with my aunt and uncle, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to get home because my metro went through the Pentagon station. I think on September 11th, as everything was happening, we heard that there was a possibility of a plane crashing into the Capitol. And then we heard that a plane had gone down in Pennsylvania, but I don't remember when they made the connection. And I don't want to discount the heroes in New York City, the firefighters and the EMS and everybody who went to a scene of complete tragedy. But I do believe that there's something to be said for the people on Flight 93. And I don't know what would have happened to me if the events of that day hadn't led to that flight crashing. And I don't know if I would be here. And so, I was a very young adult. I was 21. I had just graduated from college. I had my whole life ahead of me. And even September 11th changed the trajectory of my life, because I quit my job and I eventually left the city. And so I think about the people on that plane who did lose their lives. But for, 35 or 40 people who chose to lose their lives on that plane, there's tens of thousands of people who are here today. And I'm so thankful that I had a chance to finish working in DC and to come here to Lynchburg and to have a family and to be an adult. And I'm just one person who's thankful for those people and those families. So how many more stories are there of people, 20 years later who have that time that might not have?